Welcome back to Knights of the Dirty Table. I'm your host, not from Leominster, Merrick Henry, and now we are talking about a fandom that I've been hesitant to get to. We know we've talked a lot of superhero-dom, and we've had splashes of Star Wars here and there, and I know Jack's been giddy as a schoolgirl trying to get to Star Wars, and we're finally here, folks.
I've been hinting at it this whole time.
Yes, but before I get
Star
to
Wars,
you...
You like Star Wars?
I think I'm a fan. I'd like to think I'm a fan.
Before we get to everyone, I'm going to distill my opinions on this briefly. Now, I am much more of a general fan. I'm not as much of a diehard as, say, Jack Lowe or even Barney or many other people that are here in this room right now. I mean, I'm still going to see it. My money is still set aside for it, not even a question. I mean, I was never the biggest fan of Episode 7 because it just felt like such a copy and paste job with certain elements here and there that are a little different, but it just felt too similar. I wasn't the biggest fan of 8 because nothing felt like it was really accomplished in the story. Sidebar, I actually really liked Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker in the film. I know a lot of people hated the character portrayal, but he was actually my favorite part of the movie.
Nothing got accomplished at the end of Empire Strikes Back, just saying. Sorry.
Not true! Vader revealed that he was the dad!
Okay, no, you're right. Luke accomplished losing his hand, yeah.
Whoa, spoilers!
I should have given a warning, sorry. The spoiler Game Boy is now in effect. And I get that this trilogy, based on how other people interpret the sequel trilogy, it's meant to feel like World War II, where it was very abrupt and it happened, and it's kind of here without really any sense of build-up. But at the same time, when we have all of these wonderful franchises that exist, namely the Marvel Universe, where no stone is left unturned, where every bit of story is just as important for either the next film or the next scene or other bits of content, where the writing matters. You know, so it doesn't even feel like it's a good excuse anymore to just have these films be their own little individual things where almost nothing is accomplished. So I just feel like I don't know how I'm supposed to feel going into this movie as a general fan, because I feel like I've been let down the last 2 times because I want some payoff, some sense of build-up. I just feel like we haven't accomplished anything. And maybe that's all of Star Wars in its entirety with prequel trilogies and the original trilogies. But I have to kind of remind myself to go see this movie, as opposed to some people here who are over the moon to see it. And Star Wars is a film franchise first. You know, everything that's made in the films trickles down into all the other content, as opposed to Marvel or Harry Potter or other things that go from book to screen, where everything that's written here can be adapted and modified for the screen. Star Wars, in order to get their continuity right, Disney decided to just scrap 30 years of material and all the books and comics and everything else that came before, so everything you read, waste of time. So I just don't feel like this is really my film series as much as it is for others. And I understand it's a matter of personal preference, but I'm hoping that it goes above and beyond. I'm hoping that J.J. Abrams coming back and being a part of the franchise once again helps reignite my love for the films. I'm a big fan of the original trilogy, and I'm a fan of certain bits of the prequel trilogy, and this hasn't quite done it for me as much. Those are my thoughts. With that being said, we now formally introduce our guest on this manner, who is pondering in deep thought about my ravishing opinions, Sir Jack Lowe.
All right.
Give me your thoughts on Rise of Skywalker thus far, young Jedi.
I feel like I have to address some of the same things you were addressing as well from my point of view. Because from a certain point of view, I think that what Disney had to do was reasonable. And I don't say that lightly, being a huge fan of the original EU. But the thing was, it wasn't very well organized. You see, the way it worked was there was a canon, which was the movies.
Yep.
And that was, you couldn't contradict that. Then there was a B canon, which was a lot of the books and like the Clone Wars and stuff like that. And then there was a C canon, which was like video games and stuff like that. So you can start to see, like, it literally goes down to level G.
Let's not get any deeper.
It does go deeper, though. That's my point.
This is
I
a
don't
family
need
show,
to.
Jack. We can't get any deeper.
It goes down to, like, the board
The
games
Game Boy
are included
history.
and acknowledged in the canon. So, like, it was messy. And there was a lot of duds amongst the gold standard, like the Thrawn trilogy or Knights of the Old Republic or the Jedi Knight Dark Forces series, Kyle Katarn, his whole thing, Mara Jade and all that. And I love all that stuff. But
Jedi Knight was so good.
dude, so good.
Especially back then. Like, that was
It still holds up. I
crazy.
just played it a couple weekends ago. It's still an amazing series.
multiplayer, too. The multiplayer is fantastic.
Oh yeah. Facts. But see, here's what I feel is that from a business point of view, how can they make anything new when so much of this ground has already been tread? They would basically have been forced to do adaptations. And what do you do in adaptation of the Thrawn trilogy? Do you do the Yuuzhan Vong War? There's so many ways they could have taken it. I understand wanting to start fresh. And it's all still there, and you can still enjoy it just fine.
There are a lot of fresh elements that they've implemented, like the First Order, like Leader Snoke, and I wish that we were given some form of reason as to how did we get here? How is it that everything that happened in Episode 6 meant diddly squat, and here we are 40 years later, and everything you've watched before just means absolutely nothing? That's what I don't get.
Well, I mean, you could look at it from the perspective of, after like all the things that happens, and it maybe the Knights of the Old Republic games hold a deep meaning to you. They may not be the movies, but like if all that turmoil, fighting off the Sith, why didn't that mean anything? Like this is a story that's always going to have some form of conflict, and like the Imperial Remnant have been a thing in the EU for decades.
Yeah.
So. They were never really gone in the first place.
I get that, but I'm going to assume, and mind you, I'm not the biggest fan. I haven't read the books. You can sue me here at Knights of the Dirty Table, whatever. I just...
Whoa, hold up. You can sue him. Don't sue Knights of the Dirty Table. Nothing to do with us.
To address the movies, though,
I only have $5. Watch out.
To address the movies, though, 7 is definitely a retread, and I can give that and take that away because like there's good things that it can do to like set up what then goes after it. I think that the things that J.J. Abrams set up were tough to follow for The Last Jedi, but I think Rian Johnson did some interesting things with it.
He did some interesting things. It just bothers me that we didn't quite get a real some kind of explanation as to how we got here. How did we get to this point? I mean, you don't really need it.
Well, it takes place right after Force Awakens, and it does address a lot of the exact things that happen right after Force Awakens.
All right, fair enough. It's more with Force Awakens of how did we get here to this point. That's more my gripe.
And that's going to take time. Once this trilogy's done, that's going to leave a lot of free room for how anyone else wants to build out the expanded universe. Here's what I like about Disney's canon. Everything's on the same level. I talked about that whole ABCD.
Yeah.
None of that.
Right.
These comics are just as relevant as the movie. And that can be good, both good and bad, but it does force writers to be more creatively careful and not go to really ridiculous places in the storytelling they present.
I would be fine with that if they were able to actually, in the films, be able to create the Bible for what the universe is moving forward, meaning that there are things that are implemented in the movies that can be branched off of into the books and such. There's just not enough material in the movies for me to feel like there's enough material to branch out of. There's still a lot of gaping holes, I feel like.
The funny thing about Star Wars is that you don't need much more than a random background character to create a whole series. Like Fett. Lobot, Boba Fett, Bosk, AT-88.
Hold up, are we calling Boba Fett an insignificant background
He's
character?
a little bit more of a background character, dude.
That's how he was made. Nobody gave a thought about him back then when they were making the character.
He was just the one bounty hunter who actually got him, okay? But like the whole point is that like the whole thing about the Star Wars EU from before was that an author would just look at a character and go, how can I make a whole story out of this? And so that's really all that we need if we look at the history of Star Wars canon. Has it been perfect? No. The only thing that I can say, like story-wise, that bothers me about this trilogy is that it didn't have a cohesive vision. Like George had an idea for what he wanted 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, and 6 to be. And yeah, of course, he had something for 7, 8, 9. But from what I've heard, it wasn't exactly that promising.
After the previous films, quite frankly, I was okay with not having him be as
What I liked
involved.
about Episode 8 is that it had some interesting ways of, say, taking Luke Skywalker. It made him more human. I think that while some of the books have tried to have him like risk delving into the dark side again, or just like making mistakes, people criticize him a lot for the moment where he almost thinks about striking down Ben when he's still an apprentice. But he has a deep shame for that moment, and of course he's sensing a dark, deep power from Snoke.
He's a person. I can't say he's human.
This is the same guy who, in going to try to turn his father back to the light side, beat the crap out of him with his lightsaber and cut off his hand, and freaked out at the risk of his sister being turned to the dark side. This is an impulsive person who didn't really change too much after some time. He still made mistakes and still thought rashly, but ultimately wanted to be the good person. And I liked that it made him a real individual. Green Milk or not, I think I enjoyed the way Mark Hamill portrayed him in that.
No, totally. Before we go, why don't you tell the folks at home a little more about your adventures outside of the Zenden studio? Tell them what's going on with everything with your life.
Yeah, so I do a lot of different stuff. I just joined up with the Rebel Legion and the 501st to kind of cement my Star Wars nerddom, so I've been doing a lot more cosplaying.
Very proud of you.
My first certified one was of Clone Wars era Anakin, so I basically tried to do my best to transfer that from the cartoon to real life. I'm going to probably work on the movie accurate version. Right now I'm working on Kyle Katarn. I got a James Holden from The Expanse cosplay coming up. I'm just waiting on the suit to get to me. I'm not making that one. But I also, that's a lot of work doing jumpsuits, but I do want to get a Rebel pilot at some point. But it's a lot of fun. It's really great doing these different charities. I'm going to be at the showcase in Lowell cosplaying as Anakin on the 21st, and then the 22nd we're doing Christmas in the City in Boston. I also stream on Twitch. I play a ton of games on Twitch under Rocinante152. You can also catch me at Rocinante Cosplay on Instagram if you want to follow my different projects as
Please do.
Build props. I'm going to be also working on a Mando cosplay. We didn't talk about Mandalorian real quick. So Baby Yoda is one of the cutest things in the world, and I got into an argument with one of my friends about this, and I need to set the record straight. Baby Yoda is cuter than Baby Groot. This is the hill I die on.
Hot topic.
Yeah, this is a hot take right now, because here's the thing. Baby Groot is only a limited time offer, right? He grows back into regular Groot, and as we see, he turns into a little shit. Pardon my French.
Hold on, we just haven't seen Teenage Yoda yet.
But it's going to take another 100 years. So you can, Baby Yoda is almost like a forever puppy. You can just enjoy him as he is. He's a real puppet versus a CGI character. So you can actually, there's a chance in your life that you could actually cuddle Baby Yoda. There ain't no chance in hell you're cuddling Baby Groot, and that's facts.
Before we send you off, how many times do you intend on seeing Rise of Skywalker while it's released?
I'm seeing at least twice the weekend, because I'm seeing it once on opening night just to get that out of the way and get away from spoilers. Because even Disney's trying to spoil me this next week.
Oh yeah, they want people to see
some
the
of
movie.
These TV spots are really aggressive, man.
Yeah, they are.
And I'll probably see it at least another 4 or 5 times if it's good.
Not surprising at all. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Jack Lowe, thank you so much for being on the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.